This is CounterPoint, and I'm your host, Tanya Granic Allen. We're back with our current events panel with lots of commentary on the latest headlines. So today, we're going to discuss the brouhaha over the recent CBC APTN prank show, which drew much criticism from various groups in Canada. We'll cover the recent court decision against removing encampments in the region of Waterloo in Ontario. We'll dive into the Alberta separation debate and the latest developments with respect to the referendum. And we're going to discuss the U.S.'s latest decision to withdraw from the Canada-U.S. Joint Defense Board and what that means for our defense relationship going forward. Lots to get through, and join me now are political commentators Brock Stephenson and Aaron Vegh. Brock, Aaron, thank you so much for joining me. So lots of interesting topics today. Let's talk about this encampment decision in Ontario, because a lot of jurisdictions, actually all over North America, we hear a lot of this in the United States, and of course, Brock, you being from British Columbia, we talk about this, where there's these encampments, and some politicians say they should be removed. Some say, people should be able to have a right to mobility, stay where they like. Waterloo region just got the smackdown. They're not allowed to get rid of their encampments. So why don't we start with you, Brock? Why don't you open us up on this one?
So an Ontario Superior Court judge recently ruled that the transit hub going into Kitchener, that was going to be a Metrolinx facility, can't be built by the timeline they planned, because they're not allowed to move people experiencing homelessness, which used to just be homeless people, because it violates their charter rights, specifically life, liberty, and security. So this homeless encampment's been there since 2021. There was an attempt to move it in 2022, and in 2023, a local judge said that they could not evict the homeless encampment. Premier Ford may have had the best line on it when he said, "I wish I could get this guy's address and send 15 encampments to his backyard." I think people are getting frustrated that they have less rights than the homeless. And I understand that they may be homeless for a variety of reasons, addiction, down on their luck, whatever else. But the real problem is we're lacking social supports to help people who could use a hand up. And that's where we're getting the problem. And we now have a regional transit hub in Kitchener, a fast-growing municipality in the Waterloo region, that's going to have this Metrolinx facility delayed months or years because this judge said, no, you can't move the encampment without giving them another encampment site to live at.
Yeah, so that seems pretty crazy. Like, that's a huge beneficial regional transit hub. I appreciate that these folks have been there for 5 years. That's a long time. And at some point, maybe we'll talk about squatters' rights in a moment, but I want to get your 2 cents on this, Aaron.
Yeah, it's easy for our premier to say, let's move 15 encampments to the judge's place. But really, he had the power and has the power to fix the Mental Health Act, because back in 1978, it was amended to make it more restrictive to have involuntary committal for people that really need help. So just letting people be out in the streets like that and saying, well, we have to leave them there, it's actually causing harm. So we're not taking a proper guardianship approach to people that are not properly caring for themselves. And I would just ask, Justice Michael Gibson, would you let your children stay outside all night at a busy intersection because they have nowhere else to go? No, you would take them in. And even if that means kicking or screaming, you give them care. It's the 21st century, and people in municipalities who pay exorbitant taxes and have high regulations should be allowed to have their infrastructure built in a timely fashion. Otherwise, we're ending up like Cuba, where there's a dysfunction of government. And I would just say to the Waterloo Municipal Board, the council, just go ahead and move them with the police. It's not a big deal. Start the project, put up a fence, and just do it, and then deal with the legal ramifications after the fact. Canada is a massive country. There's tons of space for people to go. Waterloo's not an island where it's like they're going to fall off a cliff. So the whole ruling is so absurd, it's laughable. And maybe the judge himself is a crack or meth user, because he doesn't understand you can't just have people, criminal vagrants, loitering in the middle of the city, holding up a multi-billion-dollar project. It's a joke. It's a scam. And I think the LA mayor down in California, or future mayor, Mr.
Spencer Pratt,
he has Spencer Pratt, sorry, he has a great plan. He's like, they're criminals. They're not homeless. Truly homeless people rarely exist in such a great society like Canada, where we have Ontario Works, we have Ontario Disability Support Plan, we have shelters galore. We are the most resource-rich country in the world. To be homeless is a choice now, and it's also a criminal thing, because if you can
Okay,
stay
I'm gonna pause you
mobile,
there.
you can
We have to
smash.
go to commercial break, but we're gonna pick it up. Don't worry, we're not gonna leave this topic. We'll be right back. Welcome back to CounterPoint. We're discussing a lot of contemporary issues, and right now we're discussing an encampment in Kitchener-Waterloo that is holding up a multi-billion-dollar transit hub. So, Aaron, I'm sorry I had to cut you off there, but finish your thought on what you were sharing about the encampment.
Yeah, I just think it's a sad situation to begin with, because it's not true homelessness. We're dealing with criminal vagrancy, and that's the root issue. People have experienced a much higher rate of crime because of allowing people to just wander the streets and breaking through car windows, homes, abusing drugs around the city near schools. The whole thing is a criminal mess, and it's really a homeless industrial complex that needs to be stopped. And when there's a big infrastructure project that benefits a huge majority, hundreds of thousands of people, a few criminal vagrants and perhaps people that are suffering with mental health should not be used as guinea pigs to hold that up, because it makes them look bad. It makes the council look bad. It makes everything look kind of peculiar. So I just think Justice Michael Gibson is so out of touch. He really needs to travel the world and see how things work. He needs to go to Korea. He needs to go to Japan. He needs to travel to see how things actually function, because Waterloo, this region, is not on an island where people are just going to fall off. We have a massive country, massive amount of resources. I would say go ahead with the project, build it, and put up a fence and get along with the program. And those that cannot get into shelter, well, that could be potentially a criminal or mental health issue to deal with.
Well, that was my point. This might be actually a good opportunity. As you said, there's huge gaps because of revisions to the Ontario Health Act, and where those suffering from a mental health diagnosis simply are not equipped, or there's no place for them to go. Well, maybe this is a time when the social workers can come in and really deal with, in this particular, we'll start here because there's a transit hub going in, and on a case-by-case basis, help these people find housing, help them find treatment and healthcare. This might be a really good opportunity. It's interesting. I want to tie this up with this, Brock, and you can give me your 2 cents. But I know that when the government wants to build a highway through farmland, they expropriate land. Do these, I mean, I assume they have squatters' rights because they're squatting on this land. Do squatters' rights supersede expropriation rights? I mean, it's kind of like we get into this kind of legal discussion, no?
I believe it's already government land, and the judge is just saying to them, no, you can't. You're going to have to put them somewhere else. And their inability to put them somewhere else is going to delay this huge Metrolinx project. And it's government inability to take action that's going to delay it. There's plenty of ways you can provide assistance and solve this problem. The region of Waterloo doesn't seem to want to do any of them.
Okay, let's move on to a new topic. We're going to go to Alberta now. So we have a little bit of an update there. Danielle Smith said that there definitely will be a referendum on the ballot, and she's come out with some sample wording. So, Brock, why don't you start us off with that and the updates with what's happening in Alberta for the referendum?
So there were dueling petitions in Alberta. 400,000 or so said they wanted to stay. 300,000 or so said they wanted to leave Canada. And Premier Smith is, I guess, going to walk on this knife's edge and whipsawed by the electorate for the next 5 months while they're trying to determine whether Alberta wants to have a referendum to stay or leave Canada. And so it's going to be a two-step referendum process, something different than what we're used to with Quebec from 1980 or 1995. She's trying to make sure that it's in compliance with the law, and I think that's why we've got a 37-word question about whether Alberta wants to stay or go. But I would say that for any politician considering a separation referendum, they should start brushing up their resume, because usually their political career has reached its end.
Welcome back to CounterPoint. We have our current events panel where we're discussing a host of issues. We're going to continue our discussion on the separation referendum that's happening in Alberta. Aaron, I want to bring you in on this discussion. We know this is a tightrope that Premier Danielle Smith is walking. There are firm camps entrenched on each side. How do you think she proceeds with this? And is there really a path forward for succession?
Yeah, she's proceeding with incredible shrewd diplomacy because she has to balance the fact that we have a new federal government, although it's the same party, and she's making inroads, it appears, with Carney. So I think there are greater benefits to succeeding, again, a pipeline and all that, without having to pursue the whole separation or the succession agenda. She has to cater, though, to the population that wants to succeed. However, I don't think they might even have a bit of a delusionary ideal of how difficult it is to succeed from the federation of our country. So like 7 of the 10 provinces would have to agree that you would need at least 50% of the vote across the country for that. So the referendum question is just the beginning. And of course, the one justice that said, you have to consult with the natives, that was an immediate hurdle. And that's a whole separate issue, I would say. But just the idea of a province succeeding because they're not happy with the terms of the federal government, it's going to be very tough to sell to the rest of Canada because we are a federation. It's not just something they say, oh, we want to leave and make it that simple. So I think she understands that very well. She's incredibly intelligent that way, but she has to balance that with, of course, the loud voices that want to simply kick the can from the rest of the country.
Okay, let's switch gears now and actually talk about the United States for a moment. The U.S. has announced it's withdrawing from a bilateral, that means within 2 countries, so bilateral with Canada, defense coalition. This came as, I think, a surprise to many persons. Brock, I'll let you start it off, but what happened and what's the significance of this decision?
So the U.S. and Canada have been in this defense coalition since before the United States joined World War II. The U.S. has realized that if they put some pressure on their partners, they get results. So they've been concerned about Canada's contribution to NATO. They've been concerned about Canada following through on its purchase of the F-35s that goes back probably a decade and a half, 2 decades. That Canada's a slow partner on military and defense arrangements. And this is a sign of the U.S. has had enough. And maybe Canada is no longer the U.S.'s defense ally anymore. And that's the world that Mark Carney's been trying to talk about since last fall, that it's an unpredictable, unstable world, and agreements and arrangements are on a case-by-case basis. And Canada doesn't have a bigger, stronger partner to defend us anymore. And this is another sign that under Donald Trump, the U.S. is going it alone. And if Canada wants to come along for what they believe is a free ride, we need to pay the taxi fare.
Right, and that fare is going to be set, the standard will be set by the United States. Aaron, Donald Trump generally doesn't mince words, although sometimes it's a news story every day. He was very clear that he said, the United States is not subsidizing Canada's border. We're not subsidizing your defense anymore. He's used that kind of rhetoric. Is this just the next step in executing or putting those words into action?
Well, I think the idea of the golden globe, he wants to create a missile defense system that's extremely expensive. And that does require us as a country to come on board and support that. So by them pulling out of this old agreement since the Second World War, it is very much more symbolic, saying, hey, you're not pulling your weight. And I believe that this Golden Dome defense strategy is very effective in a world when we do have rogue nations like North Korea. And in some sense, Iran was getting very close to it, obtaining nuclear weapons. I mean, we have a massive amount of land that needs to be defended. So definitely requesting, up your 2.5, up your 5% defense spending is not a really big deal, considering what we're up against in the global sphere of the political turmoil. So I think our government needs to step up. This is a symbolic step to say, hey, we're not really working together here. And if Carney's going to go off to the World Economic Forum and badmouth our greatest ally, the United States, to get political chips on his side, that's not going to look well in the long term when we have to have a strategic plan to defend North America.
Right. No, I hear you. Brock, is there a relationship with the U.S. in terms of defense? Like, are we done? Or is Carney just going to wait till the midterms? There'll be a new Congress, most likely. 2 years later, probably a new president. Like, what's the path forward for Canada here?
Canada's relationship with the U.S. under Donald Trump is probably done. We saw the first signs under Trudeau where things were going poorly. You saw Chrystia Freeland go to Washington D.C. and criticize them on their home turf. Mark Carney is trying to be more diplomatic by doing it from his home turf of Europe. But I think you're starting to see a challenge here that Canada doesn't know how to respond to Donald Trump, and we're 6-7 years into Donald Trump, and we're not sure what to say and how to behave. And that's why Donald Trump sees himself as an expert negotiator and master of getting a deal. Canada doesn't even know what the deal is on the table, and I think it's tough to negotiate when you are confused. And he's certainly putting Canada in the confused category the last few years.
Okay, we're going to be right back in just a moment. Welcome back to Counterpoint. We're wrapping up with our current events panel, and we're going to switch gears to another topic. What I like to call the CBC APTN prank gone wrong. I mean, it sounded like a potentially good idea and maybe executed poorly. I don't know. Why don't I start with you, Aaron? This has made some headlines in Canada, not as much as I thought it would, but it did. What happened here with this potential show that was trying to be recorded?
Yeah, this is a great disservice to our law enforcement officers across the country, both presently and retired, that the Aboriginal People's Television Network, in cahoots with the CBC, would decide to prank retired RCMP officers and pretend to honor them, and then, of course, turn it into a big scam to really shame them. So this could potentially, lead to major lawsuits, etc. But what I want to get clear about this situation, if they are willing to turn this into a joke, so if truly RCMP officers, along with the residential school system, was a genocidal blight on Canadian history, if it truly is that, then why are they being comedic about it? So this approach to
but
making
give us some
fun
context. But give us some context.
Sure,
I don't think our viewers know what happened here. So tell us what happened.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So basically, they seduced or they fooled retired RCMP officers to come all the way to have a presentation, and that they were going to be awarded and given honors, and that they would have some information about what it was like to be a police officer, and basically honor them in the process. But it turned out to be basically a scam to mock them and saying, well, you basically were part of this historical genocide of Canada, and we're here to diss you. So there's a lot more details I could be missing, but the point is, to disrespect law enforcement officers, and especially retired ones who've spent years risking their lives to keep our streets safe, this is a great dishonor. And if it's their form of comedy, it undermines the ideal that they're pushing, that there was genocide in our country at the hands of RCMP officers. So it really undermines them because they're approaching it from a comedic position. And I would just simply take an analogous model. If we were to mock the Gestapo, as they are essentially trying to do, it would undermine the Holocaust, right? So it's just, if you look at any kind of parallel that, to fit their logic, it would turn into a mockery. So they're doing themselves a disservice, but ultimately it's probably going to end in some lawsuits, because that's no way to defame our CMP officers who have worked so hard to keep Canada safe.
So it seems that there were others targeted, Brock, targeted meaning like that were invited to participate in this show that they were trying to put together. Various political commentators who tend to be more conservative were, baited. Is that the word? I don't know. Were invited to be in discussion, have an interview. Tell us about this, and what's the consequence of that kind of behavior?
So this is supposed to be a mockumentary or comedy program. APTN is a small TV channel that partnered with the CBC, and they were going around sort of making fun of non Aboriginal points of view, that the RCMP was complicit in the Indian residential schools saga, that John A. Macdonald is a horrible figure from Canadian history, and they were bringing on commentators and retired RCMP officers and sort of playing gotcha with them and making them look the fool. And out of this situation, you got a lot of humor from their point of view, but embarrassment and heartbreak from people that think John A. Macdonald is a contributing figure in Canadian Federation and isn't just reduced to one aspect that he brought in the residential school system and that everyone in that era can only be painted with that brush, ignoring all the things that John A. Macdonald was progressive for in the 1860s, 70s, 80s. And I think that's where it makes everyone upset that people serve their entire career in the RCMP only to be brought in to be ridiculed that King Charles is canceling them as a joke. And to a lot of people, this isn't a joke. It's very serious. And humor is all a matter of perspective, but using all this taxpayers' money from the APTN and CBC is a real problem that it's not funny and it's hurtful. And I think that's why these people are upset. Maybe they can fund the alternative point of view, but we know they won't do that.
Well, I think that's an interesting point, is that at the end of the day, it's public tax dollars that fund these networks, which is what it is. But should they be used to, in this case, mock RCMP, commentators, political commentators? Probably not, probably not. Anyhow, we're all up for time, but thank you both so much. We'll have to have you on again very soon.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thanks for watching.